the most brightest star of this season so far, Alexander Isak, and after their win yesterday, Eddie Howe called him one of the world's best strikers in his post-match comments, which is quite a statement, but I don't think it's something that not everybody's been saying about him. He's been absolutely sensational this season. He got 2 more goals against Southampton yesterday, but Newcastle are remaining adamant that the striker is not available, and they're looking to give him quite a good deal to renew his contract. Now, they've put a £150 million price tag on his head, so if you want him, you're going to have to dig in your pocket. Now, Luke Edwards, in this article in the Sunday Telegraph, notes the importance of Newcastle securing Champions League football next year, which could act as an incentive for Isak to stay at the club and not look to move to maybe one of the more fashionable, glamorous names in football. Real Madrid potentially thrown out there. Now, we know he's a man in demand who could probably go anywhere he wanted to, really. Now, Cass, if you were in his shoes, would you commit long-term to Newcastle, or could you be tempted by a bigger move?
Well, let's put it in perspective of what sort of contract they'd offer him to stay. They'd probably have to offer him Newcastle. Give him Newcastle, the whole city.
You can have the freedom of Newcastle. You know what that's like. Well,
I just
anyway.
What sort of cost is it to tie him down? Obviously, his value has soared. If you value someone at 150 million, then you're going to have to pay him a contract of 150 million, as in, your wages in comparison to the fee that you want. I'm sure his agent's licking his lips because he's going to have loads of options. If Newcastle can keep him, it will be a fabulous feat on their part. I think it'll be very tricky, but the contract would have to be mind-boggling. And it'd have to be a contract never seen even close to, because whatever the highest player at Newcastle's ever got, he'll surpass that comfortably. Then you have another issue of how does that go down within a dressing room. They're always okay with high earners in dressing rooms. It's never a problem if you're being brilliant.
Yes.
But you go through a bad time and then look like you're not pulling your weight, then you've got on a major, major issue. So I'd love to see him stay in the Premier League. And Newcastle's an exciting club in many ways. It's going to be a battle to keep him, though, over the next few years.
But as you say, sometimes it's now the agent that's going to call the shots, really, in this one, in the sense of, like you say, he's going to be there going to Newcastle. You got to pay us the big bucks if you want us to stick around. Otherwise, there are loads of suitors who are happy to pay X amount to just get us out of this club. So not a great position in some ways for Newcastle because of that.
Well, financial fair play puts a sort of, it makes it very difficult for Premier League teams to even go to that amount that Newcastle might want.
I mean, it's not realistic anyway. Would any team want to pay 150?
No, I don't, we're not. That could happen. Well, that's happened before with Mbappe when he left Monaco to go to PSG. That has happened. Okay, that's the fee they paid. So it has happened. It's just
rare.
never happened in the Premier League.
Yeah.
So
I just see that more as a
don't think it
rather than anything else. It's that we're not interested in doing business, so we're just slapping a huge fee on him.
Well, now that there's regulations in football that are making it harder for even the biggest club in the world, Real Madrid, would they pay 150? Well, they opted to wait for Kylian Mbappe till he was on a free transfer. So I'm not sure Isak would sign the contract, even if they put something incredible in front of him. It'd have to have a release clause that is possible, not impossible.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to Bruno Fernandes.
Yeah, we're obviously ahead of Manchester United's trip to Craven Cottage this evening. A lot of the newspapers are going with the story of Bruno Fernandes and kind of how important he is to Manchester United. Now, the Mail has gone with Bruno's the ultimate panto villain, but where would United be without their talisman? And it's James Sharp who's written this one. He's one of the only 3 players who has at least 5 goals and 5 assists in every single Premier League season since the 1920 season, alongside Mo Salah and Heung-min Son. This article's taken a really deep dive into Bruno's stats since he made his debut at Manchester United, and I think it's probably quite surprising how well he has done for the club. He's created the most chances and most shots in the Premier League since his debut, and only Mo Salah has more combined goals and assists than Bruno Fernandes. Now, it does question whether he is a true talisman for Manchester United, but it goes into, is he successful because he's at Manchester United and he's in a struggling team, so it's easier for him to look quite important for them? But if you hypothetically put him into any of the other top 6 teams, is he quite regarded in the same manner? And there's even the question of, does he get into any of the other top 6 teams?
Well, his record itself speaks, volumes, that he's a 1 in 3 man and he's not a centre forward. That's a very high scoring rate for someone who's not a centre forward. There are wingers that have got extraordinary amounts of goals, like Mo Salah. Cristiano and Ronaldo have done it. He'd also moved inside. But 1 in 3, of course there'd be suitors, and of course it would be a champion. He's not moving to a team that isn't in the Champions League. It's always going to be that level. It's just who might need him the most. I think he's more of a Man City type of player, the way they play. But
what is a Manchester City type?
Well,
player?
is that he can play that false 9. He can play in behind players. He's technically very good. I think the way he passes the ball and receives it, that Man City can keep the ball for fun. Bruno does that well. I think it comes a little bit of a downside by the way, like you said, the pantomime villain. He can be a little bit like, he can unsettle fans. I don't see him so much at Liverpool. But look, it's whether these clubs want him, But he would make one of the top 4 teams if someone was desperate to get him. I mean, you look at Chelsea. Chelsea are a team, they go younger. But if Bruno what's Bruno now, 30 years old?
Probably, yeah. So,
with that, plus his wages, it will be still a very, very big deal. But he doesn't rely on pace, Bruno Fernandes. So that's another good sign for him as why you could have him, because he's not reliant on a burst of speed. And he's a good free kick taker. Good penalty taker.
I feel like he has quite a presence on the pitch. Like, he's there. Like, when teams are playing through that midfield, you look over your shoulder, you've got Bruno Fernandes there. Although he's got a few disciplinary issues, he's also got quite a lot of leadership qualities, which I think a couple of teams in that, top 6, maybe, like you say, Chelsea, are missing somebody who will bring all of the teams together.
Cole Palmer is there, obvious, because Cole Palmer can play that position brilliantly well, and you're not going to change Cole Palmer for Bruno Fernandes. So if there's an opening in a big club, you could look at him. I mean, his record with Portugal is pretty similar. He's been in and out of the Portugal team. Ronaldo stayed in at times, and he's been left out.
Yeah. I guess the issue with Bruno is he's not a 7 out of 10 every game.
No.
And he'll go missing at times. He'll have
that's been accused of him in big games. But he's also played a big part. His record tells you enough that he's regularly gets goals.
Yeah. Brendan Rodgers in The Times. Jonathan Northcroft has done a piece on him.
Yeah, this piece is titled How Rodgers 2.0 Kept Faith in His Beliefs to Become as Good as Any British Manager. Now, the 52-year-old is leading Celtic's European revival with his old tricks, seeing a lot of the ways he used to play with Liverpool and at Swansea when they were at their best. Short stars, lots of possession, and an 180-page document on his vision that he gives to his players. Now, Northcroft says stats reveal that Rodgers' best version of Swansea, Liverpool and Leicester all had near identical passing numbers to Celtic in Europe this season. Now, I don't know about you, do you see a future potentially for Brendan Rodgers back in the Premier League?
It would just upset the whole of the Celtic fan base.
So, I think we've done that quite a lot with everyone today, probably. We're selling Isak, Andoni Iraola's going to go at some point.
Van Dijk's going to go around Madrid, that I said the other week. He done very, very well in England, that's for sure. I think Leicester, you quite clearly see since he's left the club that they've sort of been on the free fall, and that could be for other reasons as well. He had a way of playing. He had a very, very good Liverpool team. He put together when at their best, when Sterling was there, Suarez, just causing havoc. Yeah, I mean, he's done a great job, Brendan, and he's gone back and done another great job at Celtic.
Yeah.
I don't think he can walk away and never think of going, back into Celtic or Scotland again.
Well, no.
It would just be uproar.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It was first time round. I don't know if he could do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask you, Cass, if a manager gave you a 180-page document, would you be like, oh, for goodness sake, I've got to read this? Would you have been studious? Would you have read it?
My early days, definitely not. It'd have been straight in the bin. In my latter years, probably, I think I was more conscious of taking on board information.
Yeah.
I matured and grew up.
But I think that's the key word, the maturity. Comes into it.
I'm not sure young players are too convinced about reading documents. And it's a bit like, when you get all your preparation at the end of the season, they tell you this is what you need to do in the summer, and they give you all this information.
Oh, yeah.
The young lads never did it.
It's quite a lot, though. 180 pages.
Yeah, it is probably too much, but it depends on what the information was as well. If I got bored halfway through, or just think, no, this is not for me.
I mean, it could be, defence, midfield, and you just be like, skip to the forwards. It's all right.
I think as you get older, you have to be more conscious of doing things because the young lads are not going to do it. Yeah. Most of them.
Yeah.
Weekend Sports Breakfast with Natalie Sawyer and Tony Cascarino. Sunday mornings from 6 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.